All right, so this is really weird because the guy that you're looking at on this episode of Bull in the Basement is my second cousin, who neither of us can recall a meeting between the two of us. We were just talking before we started recording that we think maybe he was a little kid, maybe like kindergarten age, and I was either at a wedding or a funeral, which is odd because one's great, the other one's horrible. He grew up in Florida. My group grew up and has lived in Western New York our whole lives. You seeing this gentleman know him well, especially if you're a Jeopardy fan. He is Jonathan Fisher. And it was so cool because I'll never forget. It was, whenever I got the text saying that, hey, your cousin's going to be on Jeopardy. And I thought to myself, which cousin? And then we found out. And then I'm like, okay, I don't know if he's ever met me or me him, and if he even knows I exist. So Jonathan, thanks for doing this. First of all, welcome to Sort of Buffalo from LA.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
You've made us very proud, by the way. Very proud.
Thank you, that's really great.
And I must say, I know people are probably saying this and like, oh, there it is, gold digger. It's just, it's like you won the lottery and all these people are coming out of the woodwork. They want a piece of you, right? And I listen, selfishly, the only reason I wanted a piece of you was to do this. Yeah, and because as a family member, I'm super proud of. So yeah, it's weird. Like you and your family have been in Florida. We've been in New York. We've barely crossed paths, if at all. And then when I saw, I was like, oh my God. So wildfire amongst the family members were like, we got to watch. This is so cool. And my wife watched Jeopardy. My wife and I watch Jeopardy on a regular basis, like all the time, nonstop. Cool. So it was so cool to see you on and for you to do this. And I have a lot of questions about Jeopardy for you. Because when I was doing radio, we had a couple of local people that had been on Jeopardy that didn't do as well as you've done. But I think I probably left some stones unturned when I talked to them about Jeopardy. And by the way, at the end of our conversation, we'll be playing a little Jeopardy ourselves. Okay. Okay. Just to let you know. It doesn't end, right? It doesn't end.
Well, listen, if it's sports, I will get it wrong. So you can have some clout there, and if you answer the questions right, because I will not know it.
No, I'm playing the role of Mayim or Alex. Okay, so I'm going to give you the answer, and you're going to have to give me the question.
All right, we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
I see why, by the way, you've done so well on Jeopardy based on what's behind you in your office there.
I strategically tilted my computer so that my full bookshelves would be on view. So yeah,
you look very well read, my friend.
Yeah, to be fair, I have not read a lot of these. I'm more of a book kind of grabber, and then it takes me forever to read them. But most of them are on the list if I haven't read them already.
That is hysterical, and that's one thing that runs in our family because I have the same bookcase.
Yeah,
this looks great. Boom.
Yeah,
you're welcome, Barnes and Noble.
Yep, there you go.
So yeah, I mean, people are probably thinking, oh my God, Bull is gonna ask him. No, I'm not asking you for your money. Trust me. I don't want it. I just wanted to do this because it gives us a really good opportunity to meet for the first time as adults, and obviously to find out about your road to and through Jeopardy. So, here's another terrible question, and this is so ignorant of myself, but I don't even know how old you are. How old are you?
I'm 30.
Okay, I was gonna guess 30-ish. Yeah.
Okay. 30 on the dot.
Very good. And before I get into the Jeopardy question, so you grew up in South Florida. How long you been in LA?
We've been here. My partner and I came out in 2016, so it's coming up on 5 years. Yeah. And
you stereotypically, in terms of going like, hey, we're going to go make it in Hollywood. Have you followed the typical actor way in terms of, I've worked in a restaurant and I've, to pay the bills, yada, yada, yada.
Well, I've been kind of fortunate in that all of my day jobs have kind of been in the arts. So my partner, we lived in Providence, Rhode Island, so kind of a little closer to your neck of the woods. And she was getting her MFA at Brown. So we were there for a while, and she got a job straight out of there working at Disneyland in the show that was based on Frozen. So she came out and I followed a couple months later. I was I had a couple shows that I was doing, theater shows in Providence that I had to do. So she worked there for a while. Unfortunately, the pandemic put an end to that show, but she was there, and I mostly have worked either as a dialect coach with a couple of different theaters working on their productions, or at the box office in a major regional theater down here in Orange County. So I've always kind of had my fingers in the arts pie to kind of make money, while I've also been pursuing mostly stage work. So I've been kind of lucky that I've been able to do that. So I haven't been a waiter yet, but it could definitely happen, especially once this Jeopardy money goes away.
It's remarkable that I've learned more about you on Jeopardy than I have from our blood relationship. That's so sad and
Yeah.
pathetic, but whatever. Yes, because I learned about your Shakespearean stuff. And it was weird because, correct me if I'm wrong, one of the games you played in, I thought there was like a Shakespeare category. And I'm like, oh my God, right up his alley. And
Yeah.
before I get into like all of the Jeopardy stuff, I sometimes notice this, and you probably do too, where I know it's not on purpose, but like there will be a category that's right in the wheelhouse of one of the contestants. And that was the case for you that one game.
Yeah, I mean, Shakespeare is a little bit tricky because it's a pretty common topic on Jeopardy. So
Yeah.
going in, I was like, okay, it's probably likely that if I play more than one game, there is going to be a Shakespeare category at some point. So that's great. I don't have to study for that at all because I can just do it. There was the one game that I played against the woman who was a pastor, and there was a category about, I
The
think
Bible.
it was the Bible, and then the
Yes.
Sabbath came up, and she actually didn't get a lot of those. And so that can happen too, where there's a category that's right in your wheelhouse, and either it's maybe a little more broad so more people will know about it, or it's really easy to get in your head when you're on the stage and you have to think of something really, really quickly. So it's a weird kind of balance of like, oh, I'm going to get these right away, or, oh, I thought I would know all these answers and it turns out I don't know any of them. So with that Shakespeare one, I did get lucky, and I did know quite a few of those just based on what I do for a living.
How to this point, how proud is your family? I mean, your dad and I are much closer in age than you and I are, and I'm sure he's over the moon to see how well you've done.
Yeah, no, it's been great. I mean, it's my parents obviously are really happy, but everyone down in Florida has been so happy. And then now I'm hearing from your clan up in New York, which just by circumstance I haven't had too much contact with, but it's been really great to, not that I'm saying, oh, you guys are just out to create a relationship with me for some nefarious reason. It's just cool to hear, Bill Seckham too.
Yeah.
I hear a lot from him normally kind of on Facebook. And so it's been great to hear from you guys and from them down in Rochester. So it's been really, really cool to get closer to people that I don't normally talk to.
Okay. So your love for Jeopardy, when did it start? And beyond that, when did you think of pursuing a spot on the show?
Yeah. I mean, the earliest I can remember watching the show, and I think I probably watched before, but I very clearly remember when Ken Jennings was on back in 2003, 2004. So I would have been 13. And I remember getting really, really into that whole thing. It was just like, who is this guy? And he keeps being on this show. He won't go away. He won't lose. It's amazing. And he ended up winning like $2.5 million on. So that's kind of the first time I remember being really invested in it. And I watched it regularly about until I went to college, and, college is busy and it's harder to watch TV, trying to find a TV that's going to show stuff. And then a few years ago, I'd say 2018 was the first time I thought, oh, I'll take the test. I can take the test. I can be on this show. And back then they had a yearly test. So usually in January every year, it was an online test and you could take that. And so I did that for a couple of years. And I think in 2020, they instituted an anytime test. So you could take it now anytime, and you usually had to wait a few months between, or maybe even a year. So I took that sometime early 2020, and I got my first call for an in-person audition in March of 2020, March like 13th. So I went down to the hotel in Culver City where they had this whole setup, and COVID was just starting to kind of trickle in. So the audition went well, and then obviously I didn't hear anything for for at all. So a year passes and I took the anytime test again a year after it happened, and I got a Zoom audition, and then they called me maybe a month later and said, "Hey, will you come on the show next week?" And this was back in August. So it was a really quick turnaround. And so
Wow.
yeah, that's
Cool.
that's the history.
Cool. Now, when you go for the audition, is it just they want to look at sort of your personality and how you adapt to the questions and how you respond and things like that, and your look and all of that?
Yeah, I think that's part of it. They sit you down and give you a 50 question test at the beginning. And then normally what they say is normally they do cuts after that based on how many you get right. Because this was a weird COVID time, they didn't cut anybody. So we did that test, then everyone played a practice round with a buzzer and they had a little mini setup. And then we took a second 50 question test. And so they're using all of this to make sure you've got a good enough base of knowledge. And then yeah, they are testing your personality. They'll say like, "Hey, you're doing great. Maybe smile a little more. You're having fun at Jeopardy." Kind of stuff like that.
All right. So what tests were harder, that or the SAT?
Oh man, I mean probably the SAT, because the SAT has math
Right.
questions. Math doesn't usually come up at least purely on Jeopardy, and that's a big that's a
That's
big
true.
low point for me.
Yeah.
So
I've tried to forget my SAT experiences completely.
yeah.
So if you asked me how mine was, I couldn't tell you because I did miserably on them. Anyway, so what? Tell me about like the euphoria when you get the call. Like, dude, you're gonna be on the show. Like, who did you call? Like, who was your first call after you got the call? Like, that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I was on the phone, and my partner, she was running errands, and so I got off the phone and I'm like, okay, I'll wait till she gets home and I'll tell her, and she's gonna flip out, and she did. She was like, "Oh my God, I can't! This is amazing! I can't believe this is happening!" And then I'm sure I called my parents. I might have buried the lead a little bit when I talked, but hi, how are you? Do some pleasantries, and then so by the way, I got a call the other day, and my mom actually didn't quite register it at first because my partner and I sometimes do this thing where we go and test game shows. So we've done a couple where there's like a new show that they're putting on, and so they have to do a lot of testing with random people to make sure that the game works. So we had done a couple of those last year, and my mom thought that that's what I meant when I said, "Oh, I'm going to be on Jeopardy," and she was kind of like, "Oh, that's cool, very nice. So how'd that happen?" And as we were talking, she was like, "Wait, wait, wait, wait! You're going to be on Jeopardy, on the show Jeopardy, like as a contestant?" I was like, "Yeah, what did you think I meant?" And she was like, "Oh, I don't know. I thought you were testing it or something. Oh my God, that's amazing." So yeah, definitely everyone was really happy. That was really funny that it kind of it took a second for her to kind of register what was happening. So that was pretty cool.
That's super cool. So you find out you're going to be on. How much lead time did you have between when you get the call and when you're going to be on to prepare? And then how did you prepare?
Yeah, for me it was short. I think it was a little shorter than most people. It was a week and a half between the call and when I had to go on, and partially that's because I'm a local to LA, and so they were calling me, and this was right about the time when the last bit of hosting thing was going on. So I later learned that they had to end up canceling a day of taping, and so there were people that had come in from across the country to tape on that day, and then they couldn't. So they had to wrangle a bunch of local people to come in for the next tape day. So that's why the timing between the call and being there was a little bit tighter. And then the first day I was there, I actually was an alternate. So they call the whole pool. They film 5 shows a day and they call the whole pool in. And then 2 of the local people are 50-50. And they tell us ahead of time so we know, but they say one of you will play today and one of you will not. And then you'll come back the next time we tape. So I was there the whole day. I did not tape that first day, and they brought me back. The next tape day was 2 weeks after that. So that's when I came back. So it was a little bit of a blessing because I kind of got to be at the Jeopardy stage for a day and kind of see what it's like. And then it was a little bit of a curse because I was there all day, and this anticipation was like, okay, I'm not going to know if I'm going to play until the second to last game. And then it didn't, and I'm really tired. And so it was that day was really, really interesting and very long. And and kind of stressful, but I think it was ultimately a good thing that I kind of got to see the lay of the land before actually having to play.
So you've heard, so you're, well, I don't know if we would call him your hero, but Ken Jennings, you mentioned, and Jeopardy, James, and all the greats. Um, for you, we've learned a lot about how those guys prepared to do as well as they did. So how, in your short amount of time, were you able to prepare?
Yeah, before the first day, so before that day where I was an alternate, I didn't really do too much just because I was like, I've got a pretty broad base of knowledge. I don't know what I'm going to be able to learn in the next week that will stick in my head that is going to help me. And then when I had 2 weeks in between that day and the day I was going to go, I'm like, okay, I think maybe I can brush up on stuff. And there's a great website called J Archive, and they have every single game of Jeopardy that's ever been played with the clues and the answers. And so what I would do is I would just run through 2 or 3 games a day and just go straight down the categories. And if I would get it, great. And if I didn't, I would Google what I didn't know and try and, make some connections into my brain and see how that would help. Um, so yeah, that's pretty much what I did over the 2 weeks between those is I would just run through some games, but also with the thought that, look, Matt Amodio's there. I watched him dominate for 5 games that day I was there. So I don't think I can possibly cram anything more into my brain that's going to give me an edge up on him. So in that sense, the stakes were a little bit low for me. It was just going to be a fun time.
That's
And then maybe I'll learn some new stuff while I'm studying.
Yeah, that's cool. So your expectations were pretty low going in. It was more about, wow, what an opportunity, see what happens kind of thing. And then knowing that you had to play against Matt, who arguably is one of the greatest all time.
Yeah.
Knowing that, I mean, that's a whole different ball game, right? You go in playing against a guy or a girl that's won once is a whole lot different from playing against one of the all-time legendary Jeopardy players. So, I mean, did you feel any added pressure than you might have any other way, knowing that he was going to be the guy who seemed like he ran through everybody for what it was, 38, 39 games?
Yeah. Honestly, I think it made the pressure less because I was like, okay, this guy he's so good. I saw him do this for a day. And I thought as I was leaving, I was like, the only way he's going to lose is if he's tired. Because it's a very stressful day. You're there all day. You get there at 7:30. And if you're playing all the games, you're there until 6 p.m. And it's physical. You're standing there at the podium. It's intensely mental. So I thought the only way this guy is going to lose is if there's some sort of external force based on the circumstances of the way this game is run. He's going to be tired. It's not going to be because he doesn't know the answers, because he clearly does. He knows everything. So that kind of helped me like go into it like, all right, I'll go. Hopefully I'll play early in the day, and they usually try. This player selection is random, but if you were there as an alternate, they put a little asterisk by your name, and they'll try and get you to play a little earlier the day you actually play. And so I thought, okay, I'll play earlier, and then it'll be cool. I can say, oh, I played Matt Amodio. He's one of the greatest players of this game. I got to be on Jeopardy. Everybody can watch. And then when they did the player selection, I was in the first game that week, and I was like, great, we'll do this. I'll get my butt kicked. Maybe I'll be home by lunch. What a great experience. And obviously that didn't happen. I was there. But to go back to answer your question, I think it actually let me be a little more chill, a little calmer, a little less pressure going in, knowing that Matt was going to be there.
How much has acting helped you with this? I mean, you clearly, if you're an actor, you have to have a pretty focused memory, right? I mean, I can't remember an hour ago. And you have this giant brain bank of stuff in your head. How much has acting helped you with, memorizing stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I think my training has helped a lot, definitely with memorizing, but honestly, being on the stage is a huge shock.
Yeah.
I can imagine for a lot of people who have no experience doing anything in front of an audience, much less in front of an audience of millions on TV. And so once you get on the stage and you're on that podium and the lights are on and the cameras are there and you've got people kind of telling you what you need to be doing now, and then add into that quick recall of facts and the buzzer skills and dealing with the host and knowing, kind of anticipating how they're gonna say a clue. There's so much that goes into it. And I think my acting training has been immensely helpful in just navigating that basic stuff.
Yeah.
Because I walk on a stage and I feel pretty comfortable.
You look comfortable. You
Yeah,
did.
that yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And
Um,
and I think that's a huge part of it, and a huge part of what makes a lot of people really nervous is going up there and being like, I don't know what's going on.
um, so you do realize that you accomplished one of the biggest upsets of all time.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's finally starting to settle in now that the shows have aired, that first week of shows that I was there that day, because it's such a whirlwind. You win a game and you're off and you're changing your clothes and they're redoing your makeup and you're back on the stage for the next game within 15-20 minutes. So there's not really a lot of time to think about it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think eventually, once this is all said and done, I think that's kind of when it'll kind of start to settle in and dawn on me. But yeah, as of now, I taped that first week of shows a little over a month ago, and it's still kind of like it hasn't quite registered as to what's going on.
Yeah. And so take me through that game. At what point were you like, oh my God, like I'm in this game. Like I have a chance here.
Yeah. I think if you go back and watch Double Jeopardy, which is the second round of the show, is usually when it picks up. And I've noticed the games I played since then, that's very true. The single round is a lot closer. And then once Double Jeopardy gets going, there's more money on the board. There's more daily doubles. The clues are a little bit harder. That's when it starts to kind of bump up. And so that's when I noticed both Jessica, who was the other player in the middle, and we were ringing in a lot. And then the thing that was happening too is Matt was ringing in and giving wrong answers, which he didn't usually do. And so as that was kind of happening, I think I was like, oh, okay. So this is a pretty competitive game here. And by the end of that round, I was $200 ahead of Jessica. And Matt was, I think, $2,000 or $3,000 below us. And I was like, wow, this I don't even
Right.
I don't even know how to compute this. So they put the category up on the board, and I was like, okay, I have to wager everything. I have to go all in because she's so close to me. And it was countries of the world, which for me it could go either way. Either I'll know it or I won't. But I was like, I got to do it. And then for whatever reason, I don't know why, but we paused for like 15-20 minutes, and that happens a lot. There's something going on with production. They have to work on something, so there was a long pause in between all of us putting our wagers in and then hearing the clue. And that was like the most nerve-wracking 15 minutes of our lives. Like we weren't chit-chatting at all. We were all just like standing at our podiums, like hands sweating, like waiting for this question to come up. And then once it did, and once Jessica's answer was revealed, that was right, was Austria, and I know I had put that, I was like, oh my God, that's it. I won the game. So yeah, I don't know. Like I said before, I don't know if I've still quite registered it. And in the moment, you have to move so quickly to go on to the next thing or go on to the next clue. So yeah, I don't know. It's just a wild thing.
It's not secret really anymore because so many Jeopardy contestants have been out and talked about it. But like, there's two things that are interesting about the game, the televised game that you obviously have done so well at. One is the clicker, right? Explain to me the clicker, about like how quick you have to be. And there's something about if you click in too soon or something, you're out of the question. I mean, can you explain how that works?
Yeah, and I'll actually show you at the audition, they give you this pen, this Jeopardy pen with a little clicker. And this actually kind of feels a lot like what it is. There's actually a little bit more resistance on a clicky pen. But yeah, the way it works is as soon as the host finishes the clue, there are two strips of LED lights on either side of the board, and those flash. And as soon as those flash, that's when you're allowed to ring in. And if you ring in before those flash, you're locked out for some minuscule amount of time. They say half a second. I don't know how much it is. So it's really kind of a calculus of, okay, she's getting to the last word of the clue, so I need to kind of calculate how soon she's going to finish versus how soon they're going to trigger those lights versus how fast I have to be to get in. And so you'll see, and they tell us to do this. They say, do this. Don't just ring in once, just constantly ring in, because you don't know how many people are going to get locked out or for how long. This is going to increase your chance of doing it. And often you'll see on the show, I would say for probably 75 or 80% of the questions, all three contestants are ringing in furiously.
Right.
And then it becomes this math game of who's locked out, who was fastest, who is not. So yeah, I mean, that's a huge part of the game that not a lot of people really realize, is that everybody knows most of the answers, but not everybody is going to be quickest on the buzzer.
Did you typically listen to the clue or read the clue? Like what helped you? What did you pay more attention to, I guess, is the question.
Yeah, I would always read the clue while they were saying. I kind of tuned out the host so I could read the clue while they were talking. And then once I had read the clue, then I would kind of tune back into her saying, kind of getting to the end, so that then I could start to anticipate where those lights were coming.
Oh, my wife hates it when because I'll speed read ahead of her,
Yeah.
and I'll answer the question before the clue. I'd be terrible on TV because I'd be like, yeah, oh wait, you got to ring in, dude. What are you doing? Come on.
Well, that's one of the ways I watched the show before, kind of in anticipation of ever being on Jeopardy, is I would always wait until the host answered the clue, and then I would always answer with a what is or a who is. Yeah, so I was always kind of training myself in case I was ever going to be on. But yeah, whenever Anna watches with me, if she knows something, she'll just shout it out, and I go, no, you have to play the right way.
You know what chaps me a little bit too, like. And you're probably, and again, I thank you so much for doing this, because you've got to be sick and tired about answering these questions.
No, not at all. It's been great.
It's weird to me that when it's a person, they okay the last name. So even if it's hey, Jones, yes, but like they might not know who the Jones is. They might just say Jones and just guess it. That always chapped me. Like they let you not do the entire name for a name question. I don't know. It's just one of my pet peeves.
Yeah, I don't really know what the origin of that is. I do know that there are certain names where you give a last name and they want you to be more specific. So if you say Roosevelt, they're always going to say which one. Yeah. So you don't get to kind of slide on that. Or Kennedy, which right. Kennedy? There's 50 of them.
Right.
But then some of them, I think it kind of comes from, they're assuming that if you're able to get the last name of this person, you know enough about the clue or about the person. You clearly know the answer to the fact, so they're going to give it to you. Yeah. But what's interesting too is if you give a first and last name, and the first name is wrong, they will rule against you, and then someone else could answer and just give the last name, and they would be correct.
That's interesting.
So that's a little quirk too. I don't know how I feel about that. Like, to me, that might be a little bit iffy, but if you're following along what the prescribed rules of the game are, then I guess that's the game.
I've noticed too, and I want to say Jeopardy James might have been the first guy to really kind of blow this open in terms of strategy. I would notice him. I think Matt probably did it, and I've seen people in between, especially when it comes to the second round. They always start with like the 1200s or the 1600s, right? To try and get that daily double, right? I mean, that strategy is a big part of the game, right?
Yeah, well, and yeah, it's funny that the very first kind of strategy guy was back in the 80s, a guy named Chuck Forrest, and he would just bounce between clues all over the board. I don't know if he was hunting for the daily doubles, but to this day, they still call that the Forrest bounce, because he would kind of do it, and his strategy was to kind of disorient his opponents. And then I think that was kind of dormant, and Alex Trebek, I think, was on record saying that he didn't really like that kind of style. He really liked the intention of starting at the top and going down. And then there was a guy named Arthur Chu, who maybe 2008, not too long ago, within the last decade, and he was the one that would start either in the middle or at the bottom, looking for those daily doubles and then going hunting. And then obviously James Holtower did that, and then Matt Amodio took that too, where they would kind of want to build up a sizable treasure chest, and then once they've got $2,000 or $3,000, then start hunting for the daily doubles, so they've got a lot to bet with. And then by that point, if you're going to the first commercial break and they've already got $15,000, you're probably like, yeah, I think this game is maybe done. For me, I don't really like is maybe not the right word, but for me, the fun of the game is not necessarily having a strategy like that, or going in and saying like, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go for these high value things, regardless of what the categories are. For me, I'll start, and I've done this in a couple of games. If there's a category like that Shakespeare category, I'm going to go to the bottom of that and I'm going to run up the top so I can get all of those, because I know that my likelihood is much higher to get those questions. But otherwise, I haven't really followed a specific strategy. I've just been kind of picking clues that I would enjoy answering. So sometimes I'll start from the top, sometimes I'll go in the middle, sometimes in the bottom. There's not really a strategy to it. I just want to have fun because it's a game. It's a
Yeah.
really fun game. And the only time you get to play Jeopardy is on Jeopardy. So every game I got to play was another chance to be like, oh, this is so cool. I get to play Jeopardy on this stage with people. So I really want to savor what I'm doing instead of thinking about, a kind of strategic way to win.
So are you that guy? Like, are you that guy that goes to a bar for game night? Like or trivia night, or are you that guy, or were you ever that guy?
No, I've never really done that. I did it I've done it a couple of times. Jeopardy is interesting in that it's very different from a typical kind of trivia night, and Jeopardy expects you to have a really broad base of knowledge, but not that deep. Whereas kind of a trivia night at a bar where you've got a team of people, they're going to ask you some really deep, obscure questions that kind of require you to have a bunch of people on your team that maybe have really deep knowledge in one or two places, and then as a team you're going to come up with it. I remember I did a one trivia night when I was living in Providence. I went, and there was a question about like the gold medal in women's volleyball in the 1980 Olympics, and I was like, who is possibly going to know this? And of course there was a team where they knew it, and I'm like, okay, this maybe is not the kind of trivia thing I want to get into. But Jeopardy is a little more up my alley, because I do, just over the years and however my brain works, kind of accumulating this very broad knowledge in a lot of different subjects rather than really deep. And I have deep knowledge in some things, like pop culture is a pretty good bet that I'll get those $2,000 clues. But Jeopardy is unique, and I kind of like it better personally.
Were you trying or hoping for or against particular subject matter? I mean, we've talked and you said sports is not something you're great at, so you're
Yeah.
probably rooting against any sportsy subjects.
Yeah, that game where the final Jeopardy category was sports legends, I was like, oh no. And my bet, actually, I bet really low because my personal comfort with the subject was low, but I was also betting that the woman playing against me, who was the pastor, I was like, I bet she is going to bet low too, because she doesn't seem like a sports anything, much less sports legends. And then as it turns out, that clue wasn't really a sports question. The answer ended up being Yogi Berra. And I knew it because Yogi Berra is famous for having these kind of whimsical, off strange sayings, and so I knew that immediately. And so that's another thing that happens in Jeopardy, is you can think that the categories are going to be one thing, and then they can take a pivot and be another. But yeah, sports is low on the list. Anything where you have to do math really quickly, which is pretty rare, but they do come up. Word jumbles are kind of tricky. But then anything, pop culture, literature, those triple rhyme time words, I'm actually kind of good at coming up with those quickly. So yeah, it's such a hodgepodge, to borrow a Jeopardy phrase, that it's like, all right, those are categories I got to deal with. I'm gonna have to answer a sports question at some point, so I better get used to it.
Money aside, you're a celebrity now, but you're also in the home of probably more celebrities than anywhere where you live. So have you noticed celebrity? I mean, have people, you're walking around and people see you like, oh my God, hey.
I haven't gotten any of that in person. A little bit more on the internet.
Yeah.
I'm not a big Twitter guy, so I started a Twitter page. I'm not super active on it, but as soon as that first game aired and the next couple, people were, flooding on saying like, oh, da da da. Mostly nice things, some crappy things, but that's the internet for you.
Yeah.
But no, I haven't gotten a lot of in person yet. So we'll see if that changes or not. I'm not surprised, because everyone's, has masks on, or
right.
and I don't know how many people are watching Jeopardy, but yeah, no, not a huge amount of recognition quite yet.
It was interesting when I was reading some of the social media when you beat Matt. People were like, "Oh, I'm so sad. Matt was such a nice guy," and I was like, "Dude, what's wrong with Jonathan? I mean, he won fair and square. He was amicable. He was smiling. He was fun. Come on, man."
Yeah, well, it's funny too. There's such a divide in people that watch Jeopardy where I would say most people really liked Matt and really like it when there's a long streak, but there's a very vocal contingent that hated Matt for whatever reason. I have no idea why. And also really hate it when there's someone going on a streak because they think the game is boring or whatever. So I think there was a lot of that. Like a lot of people that really liked Matt were very attached to him. I mean, he was on for 40 games almost.
Yeah.
So that's a long time to tune in and see someone familiar on stage that you like and want to root for. So I don't hold it against him. People that don't like me purely for the fact that I beat Matt in a game. That's fine. I can live with it. But I'm getting a lot of comparisons too, which I've gotten in my whole life. A lot of like, oh, you look like John C. Reilly, a lot of Will Ferrell's, and I've been hearing that for years and years.
Right.
So it's really, really funny to hear it kind of all across the internet from people that I don't know.
It'll be more funny when Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly go on SNL and parody you.
Yeah.
Like that's, I mean, right? That like being on Jeopardy is amazing, but I've always said this: if you get parodied on SNL, you have ultimately made it, right? Like that is the life goal. It should be the life goal of anybody, like good or bad parody. If you've been parodied on SNL, that says something.
Yeah, that would be incredible. I would love that. Who knows? I mean, I don't know. I don't know how much the writers of SNL are watching Jeopardy since they don't quite do that Celebrity Jeopardy sketch that much anymore. But
Right.
yeah, I mean that would be incredible.
Well, one of their main producers is from Buffalo, so
Oh, okay.
I'll put a bug in her ear.
There you go.
Has this at all? I mean, have you now? People are aware of what you do and where you are that watch, and I'm assuming there's industry people that watch. Has this helped your career? I mean, has your phone been ringing at all for?
Not really. I've kind of used this to kind of jumpstart that kind of thing myself. I haven't had a lot of interest. I suspect that because it's a game show and because I'm myself on the game show, there's a little bit of a disconnect of like, oh, he's an actor, but that's not going to register because we're just seeing him be himself and answering trivia questions. So it doesn't really surprise me that there hasn't been a lot of crossover just because people in the entertainment industry they're very set in the way that they do things and they have done things for a while. And so asking people to think outside the box is maybe a little much. So it doesn't surprise me, but we'll see. I mean, as of tonight, I'm still on the show, so we'll see what happens.
I hate. I shouldn't say this because I selfishly watch them largely in part because of my wife. But I watch reality shows. There was a time when I watched all the Bachelors and Bachelorettes and Bachelors in Paradise and Bachelors Drowning and Bachelors,
Yeah.
At the convenience store and fill in the blank, right?
Yeah.
Don't go on a reality show, dude.
Yeah, no, I've even, yeah, I've gotten questions about like, oh, other trivia shows. I'm like, honestly, Jeopardy's kind of the one. And,
Yeah.
I see some other shows and I'm like, they're a little tacky, they're a little garish, they're a little, plain kind of to a lower denominator. But Jeopardy has always kind of been the gold standard and very classy and very respectable. And that's kind of where I kind of want to sit. So yeah, I won't say never because I don't know, there might be a very lucrative offer that comes in.
That's
but
right.
Yeah, it's definitely not on my radar to do anything like that.
Okay, so what's your are you primarily want to do stage? You want to get soundstage, movies, TV? Like ultimately, what are you looking to do? You chased your dream out to LA, so what do you want to happen?
Yeah, I mean, I've been kind of building my stage credits and my stage resume since I've been here, and that's kind of been what my career is up to now. But yeah, I do want to get into movies, TV, commercials, which are very lucrative, kind of anything. And I'm kind of at the point where I'm like, okay, I've done a lot of Shakespeare, I've done a lot of stage work. Let's kind of branch out and see what else is out there. So yeah, pretty much anything that is around, I'm open to.
This may be too much information. I hope not. But your mom's a lawyer. Is she your agent?
No, that's a really good question. She is not an entertainment lawyer, and as I'm learning, the entertainment law sphere and entertainment in general is very specific. And so I've asked her, a couple of questions about it, but she's like, yeah, this is great. You should probably find an entertainment lawyer that's going to know kind of the industry standards and stuff. So I would love it. I would love it if that was her expertise. Unfortunately, it's not. So.
Okay. It is time now to play Jeopardy.
Okay, let's do it.
I will. You have no other competition, so it's either right or wrong. It's either money or no, okay.
That's true.
So I will read the answer, and you will buzz in with your pen.
Great.
What you think the question is? Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. I can't tell you this. This. All right. The subject is the category, I beg your pardon, is Queen City. Okay. Queen City.
Queen City. Okay.
Is the category. All right, here we go. For 200, they are properly served with they are properly served with blue cheese. Jonathan.
What are buffalo wings?
We'll take it. In Buffalo, we just call them wings, but
fair. Yeah, that's fair enough. That's fair enough. I forgot where we were broadcasting from.
Let me ask the judges. Yep. Okay, it's taking a moment. Hold on.
Yeah.
This is like that 15-20 minute break that you had to take. We'll take it. Okay, it's good. Okay.
Right,
Queen City for 400. Here we go.
All right.
This Hall of Fame running back traded his red, white, and blue for the teal and orange of his longtime rival, the Miami Dolphins.
Oh, man. Oh, this is so embarrassing because these are these two cities, but I have no idea.
And your mom worked for the Miami Dolphins.
I know. I have no idea.
Hold on. Let me.
Oh, yes. Yeah, go ahead.
Who is Thurman Thomas? Well, that is correct. That is correct. Thank you. Thank you.
This is how little I know about sports. I've literally never heard that name in my life.
That's okay. These next three, I think, two of them are historical. The other one is pop culture. Okay.
Okay. All right.
There we go. Right. I think we're at 600 now. Queen City for 600. This U.S. city's center city was burned to the ground by the British during the War of 1812.
Center City.
Jonathan.
What is Buffalo?
Correct. Yes.
All right.
Queen City for 800. I'm choosing for you.
Great.
He was assassinated at the 1901 Pan Am Exposition in Buffalo. Jonathan.
Who is McKinley?
That is correct. Yes. Right. And finally, for 1,000, you will not have swept the category, but close.
All right.
This Buffalo native song was featured in a party scene in the movie Bohemian Rhapsody.
Buffalo native. Oh, no. No, I don't have it. That was good.
Thank you.
Yes, Rich.
That would be Rick James.
Oh, I didn't know he was from Buffalo.
Yeah,
okay.
He's from Buffalo. See,
well, there we go. See, I'm learning new stuff for Jeopardy.
That's right. Hey man, continued success. Keep rocking it.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. It's been really, really exciting, and it's been fun to finally be able to watch the games and to talk about it after I've been sitting on it for a month. So it's been a blast.
It's cool, man. And congratulations, success forward for you, and nice to, as adults, meet you.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. It's been really cool to meet you too.
Thanks for doing this. I hope you had fun, man. It's the whole purpose of doing Bull in the Basement is running sort of buff-centric people through the podcast. Now, you don't really have anything to do with Western New York except for the fact that you're related to me. But who cares?
That's great.
For fans of Jeopardy, they know and love you, I hope. At least we do. So the best to you, the best to your partner, the best to your mom and dad and your siblings and all of that. Great having you on, man. Continued success, and we'll be watching.
Yeah, thank you so much, man. It was a blast.